Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to the KSL.com Game Center podcast. It is Tuesday, January 31st, coming at you on the last day of the first month of 2023. And coming at you also at a pivotal time in all of college hoops, but in particular, the season of what many would consider, maybe if not the best, one of the best men's basketball teams in the state, the Utah State Aggies. Started out white hot on the season, have kind of been up and down a little bit over the last month or so, but we wanted to do a quick check-in on what's going on up in Logan. So we brought in KSL.com contributor and Utah State student Jacob Nielson. Jacob, how you doing this morning on this quite frigid day? I imagine even more so up in Logan.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, my man. Trying to not freeze my pants off. The window in my bedroom it froze over from the inside. So it is a frigid January day, but I'm doing really well. And we're excited up here because there's some big basketball games to be played upcoming in Logan starting tomorrow when Utah State hosts New Mexico.
Yeah, that was kind of the main reason I wanted to bring you on. New Mexico was ranked last week, just snuck in at 25, but not ranked anymore. However, still, one of the top three teams in this pretty solid Mountain West Conference. And this game, like you mentioned, tomorrow starts off a pretty big slate for the Aggies over the last, month or 6 weeks of this season. With all three of the top three teams in the Mountain West Conference playing Utah State at home over the next month or so. So New Mexico tomorrow, like you mentioned, and then next week you got San Diego State. So big stretch for the Aggies. And so just kind of want to check in and maybe if you could just kind of give us a quick little bit of background on yourself and kind of how you came to be on the Aggie beat.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I am a senior up here at Utah State studying journalism. I'd say it was about 2 years ago. I met BYU beat writer / do it all guy Sean Walker at the Mountain West tournament when I was working for the school paper up here, and Sean just seemed sick and tired of yet another program to covering Utah State, and so we met, and he realized like, oh, this dude's a good writer, and so he sent my information on to our sports editor, Josh Furlong, and said, hey, get this guy. And so the rest is history. The past 2 seasons for football and basketball, I've been able to be a contributor and covering Utah State sports for KSL.com. So it's been a blast. Grown a lot as a professional, and it's really fun to be dialed in and kind of giving a statewide audience the scoop on Aggie sports.
Yeah, for sure, and it's definitely much appreciated. With Logan being a little bit further out from this main Salt Lake market, they don't always get the coverage they might deserve, and especially with as good of a season as a lot of their teams are having this year. I'm glad we're able to get some more of their coverage. And this is the first time that we've met each other. I run social media for KSL.com Sports, so we've talked a little bit over social media and over text, organizing some of that stuff. But first time meeting each other, even if it is over Zoom. However, I should note that your younger brother, a BYU student currently, I met him when I went to BYU, and he was actually a guest on one of my previous podcasts down at the Daily Universe with my boy Jackson Payne just a couple weeks ago. So kind of fun. We've got both
right
of the Nielson brothers on these podcasts.
So he's actually my twin brother.
Oh,
believe it or not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I am flattered that you assumed he was my younger brother because I am more mature in stature and experience and good looks. But no, yeah, it's kind of fun because we're both dialed in kind of in the sports world. He's trying to do statistics in sports, and so we got a fun budding rivalry of Provo, BYU, Logan, Utah State. So that's cool that you had a chance to meet him a few weeks ago.
So hopefully Grant doesn't listen to this, and if you do, I'm sorry I shortchanged you on that brother confusion there. However,
I'll be sure he's listening.
Oh man, I'm sure I'll get a nice earful on Twitter there for that. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and move on to our main topic today, which are the Aggies, of course, having a good overall season, but a little up and down. I think maybe they might be a little bit glad that the month of January is over and they can kind of move on to a clean slate here in February. Let's just do a kind of a quick preview of what you're expecting in this big home game tomorrow against New Mexico.
Yeah, so here's kind of the deal with Utah State. They are 6-3 in conference play. Every game they have been favored in, they have won. Every game that they are not favored in, they have lost. And those are three road quad one games against Nevada, Boise State, and San Diego State, which is among three of the top five teams in the conference. And so they enter a stretch now that is not only pivotal, but it's really exciting for the program because they host, starting tomorrow, they host New Mexico. Then they host San Diego State next week. Then they host Nevada the following week. And then the final week of the season, they host Boise State, all at home. So all four of the top five teams, Utah State is the fifth team. They're tied with New Mexico, I guess, in that fourth place. So this kick starts a massive, massive stretch for Utah State in their hopes to build their NCAA tournament resume because right now they're right on the bubble. I would say if the season ended today, though, they're not in because they don't have any quad one wins and they got two quad four losses. So it starts tomorrow. New Mexico, they slipped out of the AP rankings, but I think more importantly is they're still top 30 in the net, which means they're a quad one team. And any chance you have to get a quad one win at home is absolutely massive. And so tomorrow night, they're the theme in the arena is going to be they're going to call it Spectrum Magic. And so there's going to be T-shirts that resemble the kind of the seats in the Spectrum that are, they're kind of Reese's Pieces colors, right? Super unique. And so that's an annual thing, and the student section is expected to be absolutely filled up as it's been the past couple of home games. And so that I think that the hype is really high up here. They're favored in this game, but New Mexico, they were ranked last week for a reason. There's a reason why they're projected to be an at-large team, and it's because they have one of the most balanced attacks in the Mountain West Conference because they are in looking at KenPom.com, they're 35th in offense and they're 70th in defense. So they're top 70 in both offense and defense. And last year under Coach Pitino in his first year, they were really good offensively, but they were lagging defensively. And now they've been able to pick that up and turn into a complete team. And so this is kind of a Lobos team that doesn't really have a lot of weak spots to it. All their losses have been really, really close. They lost to Nevada in second overtime. They lost a tough one to Fresno State on the road, and they went undefeated in the non-conference schedule, and that included wins over St. Mary's. And so this is a team that just there's not a lot of weaknesses to it, and so the Aggies have to play really, really good basketball if they want to come out with their first quad one win on Wednesday.
For sure, for sure. And maybe just to highlight a couple of those guys that Utah State will be leaning on for those who are less acquainted with the team. Stephen Ashworth, a Utah native, he's been having pretty great season as a junior, I believe. Currently leading the team in points per game at 15. And then they've got a guy, Dan Akin, a transfer, moved around a couple times. And he's leading the team in rebounds at 7.5, and he had a great performance last week with 23 points in one of the Aggies wins. So kind of a balanced team there as well. You got the point guard, you got the forward, and then they've got kind of those guys, veteran guys around the team as well. You look at guys like Taylor Funk and Bairstow as well, and Shulga for sure. You kind of got these guys who it's a very diverse team. It's an international squad. I think it's a lot of fun to both watch and just to kind of see how this team has been brought together using a lot of different pieces that you might not expect. So I'm curious, from your point of view, who maybe from the players' point of view, who stood out to you, and who do you think maybe will be, for lack of a better term, an X factor tomorrow when the Lobos come to town?
Well, Caleb, I think the cool thing about this roster is zero contributing players transferred out of the program after the first year under Ryan Odom. And there were guys that didn't get a ton of minutes last year, but were still in the rotation that I thought were going to transfer for another opportunity. They stuck around because this team really, really loves the coaching staff. They're just a very players first coaching staff. And so the team kind of resembles that this year in their balance and in the depth that they have, especially in the backcourt. And they have five guys that average double digits in Stephen Ashworth, Taylor Funk, Dan Atkin, Max Shulga, and Sean Bairstow. And really, any of those five guys can step up on a given night. And if any of them are the leading scorer in the box score, it's not really a surprise. Obviously, the top dog and who I think is the heart and soul of the team is Stephen Ashworth. You know, Utah State basketball has a long line of local Intermountain West talent really performing really, really well. The all-time leading scorer, J.C. Carroll, he's from Evanston, Wyoming. Sam Merrill, obviously, is from Bountiful. Ty Wesley's from Provo, right? And so I think there's something about you have this loaded roster of guys from Europe and from Australia and the United States, but having those local ties with some of your best players is really pivotal to the fan base and also to the heart and soul of the team because Steven's a guy that has grown up a college basketball junkie. He knows going into it the history of the Aggies and what it requires to be successful in the Mountain West Conference. And so now that he's a junior and he's really blossomed this year, right? Because he is third in the country in 3-point shooting percentage at 47%. And he's a guy, he especially comes alive at home. He's a fan favorite. Excellent interview. If you need a quote, you go to Stephen Ashworth. But he's a guy that, although he's only 6'1" and in a really physical conference, he finds a way to get his shot off. And you give him a tiny bit of space and he's going to do damage. So he's the guy, especially going into tomorrow. You look at a big home game, he's your leader. He's a guy that needs to step up. He's not somebody that's going to take over the game in terms of usage rate and be the guy just hoisting it up every time down the court, partially because he's only 6'1". It's hard for him to get a shot off. But he is such an active guy in transition and in the half court offense. He works. He's like Stephen Curry, running around screens, just doing everything he can to get a shot off. And his opportunity is going to come, and he's going to score points. And the Aggies need his production tomorrow because they are such a offensively heavy team, right? And I think the other guy that you need to look at against New Mexico is Taylor Funk, right? He's a transfer from St. Joseph's, and he's a 6'10" guy that's really just a tremendous 3-point shooter as well. And if both those guys, kind of how the season has gone, is Steven will have big games where he'll get up to 20 points, but then Funk will have like 8 or 9, and then they'll swap roles. Funk will get up into the 20s. Steven will be single digits. So I think to beat a New Mexico team that's as balanced as they are, they're going to need offense. And if they can get both guys to contribute at home, both have big games, I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, you mentioned Funk. He's a guy that's really fascinated me all season because he kind of has that prototypical, what you look for in a modern day player with the size and the shooting ability. You meant, 6'10" and can shoot the three. You almost wonder, over this next, final stretch of the season, if he's able to come alive, kind of build his stock a little bit, because he would be kind of a, what NBA teams, what they're looking for at that next level as far as size and shooting goes. So I think for me, he's been one to watch, and I look forward to if he's able to come alive tomorrow and down the stretch. Well, one other thing you mentioned that I want to touch on a little bit as we kind of finish up here is that connection to the fans. The home crowd there at the Spectrum. You mentioned Spectrum Magic and all that kind of fun stuff. Ashworth being a fan favorite. I've heard, I've never been to a basketball game in Logan, but I've heard about the crowd there. I have seen the crowd at football games. So I'm kind of curious, as Utah State enters this stretch where they have some really, really huge home games and some big opportunities in Logan, what is it about that crowd that can kind of push this team over the edge?
Yeah, I mean, in any college basketball atmosphere, if you can get a quality crowd, it's an inherent advantage, and that's reflected in kind of the quad rankings, right? It's much harder to get a quad one or quad two win at home. The team has to be much better than they are on the road, right? But the thing about the Spectrum is just one, the aesthetic of the building is just how close the seats are to the court, and you really feel like it's a bunch of animals in a cage almost. I hope that's an appropriate metaphor, but just the seats are so close together. It's not a very comfortable place to watch a game in terms of if you're a lengthy guy like me and trying to stretch out. But in terms of just an environment where everyone's just hoops junkies dialed in, it's the perfect setting. And not only that, but the student section, the capacity of the arena is 10,000. 4,000 of those seats are the student section. Literally 40% of the arena. And it wraps around from the near sideline to the camera, all the way around to what the section behind the right basket, right? And so when that thing can fill up like it's been doing this year, it's an insane advantage because it's not just crazy noise and heckling coming from one corner of the arena. It's coming from half the arena. Like everywhere you are, your mind is just boggled by this noise. And I mean, they're really creative. They have unique chants that they've either popularized or invented. The herd has, but I think it's just the passion for basketball up here. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a basketball school. College football moves the needle. It's a big deal. If Utah State can play well in football, it's a big deal. But at the end of the day, if you ask any Joe Smo in the Cache Valley, hey, would you rather have your team make a bowl game or make the NCAA tournament? 10 times out of 10, they're going to talk about the tournament. It gets the community going, and it's a basketball school, a basketball environment. And I think that's really what it is just the intensity of the fan base, and that can translate into a greater intensity from the players and also makes it a lot harder as an opposing team.
You heard it here first. Basketball school, basketball city. Both my parents went to Utah State. My dad's from Logan, so I'm very acquainted with Cache Valley.
Right
So some big basketball games coming up in a big basketball town. So appreciate you coming on, Jacob. Make sure you guys are checking out these games, checking out what Jacob's writing and tweeting for us over at KSL.com. And we will catch you next time on the KSL.com Game Center podcast.